Oh, baby. We're live. The Juice Betting Show is live. Player Profiler Podcast Network on YouTube and on podcast. Shervon and Ahaan in the building. You can find them at Shervon Fakimi on Twitter and at Ahaan Runkta on Twitter. We are officially 7 days out and 1 hour from the NFL draft beginning in Kansas City. Boys, are you excited to talk about the NFL draft props tonight or what?
Yes, sir. I am. I'm ready to go.
I'm fired up. Last time we did the juice was with MLB, and it was one of the most fun episodes that's been on the network recently. Matt learning about how baseball is going, and this is on the completely other end of the spectrum, right up all of our alleys. And glad that you're here for this as well, Cody. Super excited.
This is my favorite time of year, and I knew the Juice needed to have an episode. You brought it up. I said, you know what? Let's do it. I'm in all the way. NFL draft season. It's best time of year, if you ask me. Let's start out, though, where everybody thinks now is a lock. Number 1 overall, the Carolina Panthers. What's the move? I mean, the big move has been CJ Stroud to Bryce Young over the course of the last week and a half. Are you guys in line with this?
I'm not laying minus 1,200 on Bryce Young. Just got to put that out there so everybody's clear on that, okay? But that's where we're at right now. Bryce Young minus 1,200. For some context, in case you have not been monitoring the market movement, so before the Panthers and Bears made the trade involving the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young was viewed as a favorite minus 160. After the Panthers and Bears later that night, CJ Stroud becomes a favorite minus 225. He later becomes an even larger favorite. And then recently, some stuff around CJ Stroud about lack of preparation, or he might not be ready, mentally to start or whatnot. Lots of stuff, pushing CJ Stroud down stock wise. And lo and behold, it's 420 now, and Bryce Young is minus 1,200. I'm not touching this market at all. It seems like the books know what they're doing. They're locked into Bryce Young for what looks like 2 days now.
I agree. I think Bryce Young, all the reports we've been seeing the last few days has been overwhelming in the Bryce Young direction. So, sounds like he's going number 1. I don't think there's really any point to hit 1,200. Might as well just go on and wait for number 2 and see what happens there.
The question more so is, if you're not going to go 1,200, right, is there any benefit in sprinkling on CJ Stroud? Like, is there any thought that he's still there? I think it's complete gone shot. I know Ahaan was on the Decision Point a couple days ago mentioning he still liked him. Rich Rebar kind of still likes Stroud as well. But all the S2 testing that came out in the last week, and then some, of course, when one negative thing comes out on somebody during the draft, it's like, pile on, everybody. He didn't go to the Manning Academy. He's a bad teammate. He doesn't watch tape. He's this, he's that. And is there any thought to either of you guys that there's still an inkling of thought that maybe CJ Stroud does get up there?
For me, CJ Stroud I'll just say it. CJ Stroud is the QB1 of the class. I know, Cody, you're not going to agree with me on that, but CJ Stroud, in my opinion, probably the best quarterback of the class. But who cares? Nobody cares about my opinion, right? That's not what we're betting on. We see plus 800 on CJ Stroud on FanDuel. This is what's fun about the NFL draft. You have to bet on what the teams will do, not what you think is right. And don't worry, I'll get to a Patriots bet that I don't like in real life. But Anthony Richardson, third at plus 2,500. I think the way you play the quarterback market, if at all, is you find value in fading CJ Stroud completely at the top of the first round. So if these reports around CJ Stroud have any gravity, if we think that NFL teams don't like CJ Stroud all of a sudden, find ways to bet other players to go ahead of CJ Stroud. And I think Shervon has at least one prop in that mindset as well. So I think that's how you attack the market, if at all, even if you're like me and love CJ Stroud.
I do see one quarterback prop on Shervon's side of the board. Where are you going here?
Anthony Richardson to go in the top 5, minus 115 on FanDuel. I mean, he's the quarterback with the most upside in this class. I think that's almost universal at this point. We know there are at least 3 teams right now that could use a quarterback that are picking in the top 5 with the Panthers. They're going to take Bryce Young likely, and then the Texans at 2. A lot of smoke around what they're going to do, and then the Colts are at 4 right now, which seems like if it goes Young and Stroud, and then the Cardinals stay put, then I think that's the spot where Anthony Richardson goes. If he slips to 5 at Seattle, like that could be their best chance at nailing their quarterback of the future. So they're sitting there at 5 as well as another team that could use a quarterback. And of course, the Cardinals still sitting there at 3. They have their quarterback of the future, at least I think so, at least in Kyler Murray. He's not going to play this year or most of it because of the torn ACL. So, and they need help with everywhere, really, with their roster. Their roster is barren. So they're a team that makes a lot of sense that could trade out. A team like Tennessee could trade in, as Anand pointed out on the decision point. Their new GM went to the University of Florida. So there's obviously going to be a connection there. So I think Anthony Richardson is a lock to go in the top 5.
I think that's very interesting because you bring up Rand Carthon, obviously going to Florida, but Rand Carthon was also in San Francisco when they get Trey Lance. You bring up Tennessee, Brendan Donahue as well. He's the number 1 most accurate mock drafter from the Huddle Report over the course of the last 5 years. He has Tennessee going to 3 to get Richardson. I have the Raiders even coming up from 7 to 2 to get him. So I do think at minus 115, it's good money to bet on Richardson to be up there. And if he doesn't go top 5, I think it's a world where he's going to plummet down. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as like a Lamar Jackson where he falls to in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably be more like Justin Fields, 11, 12, 13 area. But we haven't seen anything push that way, right? We've seen a lot of Levis conversations of either top 5 or teens. Richardson's been kind of consistent, even though people are saying the talent maybe should be in the teens. The draft capital and the mock drafts have all been pointing towards Richardson being up in that area. So I really like that one as well. Now, talking about the total quarterbacks in round 1, it's set at 4.5. Are you over that or are you under that?
I don't feel great about this, but I think I would take the over just because I think there are a lot of teams sort of like in the back end of the teens and the sort of into like the early 20s that could use a quarterback. And I think Hendon Hooker, I know he's old for a rookie quarterback. I know he's coming off a torn ACL. There are questions about his offense. I certainly have plenty. If you read my article on Jalen Hyatt that came out I think it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. So he definitely has question marks, but quarterbacks, they're always going to be in small supply. He did enough to at least warrant this being a conversation, and there are enough teams like possibly Detroit. I don't think they would pull the trigger on him at 18, but Tampa Bay at 19. And then Seahawks again at 20. If they don't get Richardson, they could possibly be a spot for him. The Vikings are currently the favorite to land Hendon Hooker, which would make sense. Kirk Cousins on the last year. He's going into the last year of his contract. I don't really know what other options. It's not like if Kirk Cousins is going to be on the team, they're going to be bad. Like, yeah, they're due for regression with how many 1-score games they won, but they're not going to be Caleb Williams bad. So if they're going to need a quarterback at some point, their best chance might be to just take Hendon Hooker at 23, have him wait a year, and then as he rehabs his torn ACL, and then go from there.
Hendon Hooker's a guy. Okay, you can go.
Yeah, I was going to say, related to what Shervon said, you can either take the over 4.5 quarterbacks drafted round 1 plus 102, right? And you're basically making the bet on whether Hendon Hooker is going to go round 1. Or if you want to get a little freaky and only sprinkle this market, there is an interesting look, which is targeting a specific team to get Hendon Hooker. And there's one specific team that has kind of interesting market. If you have this prop on DraftKings, well, good for you, because we in Massachusetts don't have this. The Washington Commanders to draft Hendon Hooker, or to draft a quarterback as their first player drafted, which obviously basically means Hendon Hooker. Whether you take Hooker to go to Washington or Commanders to draft a quarterback first, either way, it's plus 1,200 on FanDuel. I am seeing that this is plus 2,000 on DraftKings. So if you have that on DraftKings, I think plus 2,000 there is a good sprinkle for Hooker specifically to go to Washington. There's a plethora of reasons Washington would want to make that move early, especially with what they have there and the whole Lamar situation. Apparently nobody in the world wants Lamar, which is another story, but that's a sprinkle I would make.
Where's Houston on that market?
Houston Texans not available for Hendon Hooker, it looks like, unless I scroll to the Hendon Hooker menu itself. Team to draft Hendon Hooker. Vikings plus 500 is the favorite. Houston Texans plus 2,000.
Okay. I like that one. That's one. So if you look on mock draft database, you can see broken down by team of projection by a lot of these mock drafters. 23 is a heavy one for the Vikings, obviously for Hendon. 22 is also one there with the Ravens. I thought was very interesting. You bring up Washington. I see that one a couple times. I think the one thing people need to understand and weigh in here with this Hendon Hooker conversation is a month ago, we saw Mike Tannenbaum from the 33rd team, former GM, put him at 5, right? He didn't put him at 5 because he thinks he's going to go 5. He put him at 5 to make a statement. Peter Schrager came out with his mock yesterday. He put him at 11. He didn't put him at 11 because he thinks he's going to go 11. He put him at 11 to make a statement. And that was that if you look at the past ADP of the NFL draft, literally February 13th on mock draft database, Hendon Hooker's ADP was 134 for the NFL draft. And it has climbed exponentially up to 40 today. That's about 45 days, 50 days. It went from 140 to 40 essentially. And that's where it belongs. He should have always been in the 40s, because if he would have won the Heisman last year or been a finalist for the Heisman, the conversation wouldn't have even ever went out that this guy doesn't matter, because of the ACL, whatever. I think the NFL thinks the talent is there to a certain extent. I think being a first round lock, I would bet that. I would bet you'd say at plus 102. I like the bet to have Hendon Hooker go there in round 1. That gives 5 quarterbacks. I think that's a hammer. I think that's a great bet. Shervon at plus 102. I think that's minus. I think that's going to be minus money by Monday night. So I like that call on there. Let's shift to cornerback, not quarterback here. Now let's go back to cornerback. You both have a couple of props out here for cornerback. And I see one name on mock draft database that is not mentioned by either of you guys, but I want to see who you guys like to be the first cornerback off of the board. Ahaan, you go first.
Well, there's a particular cornerback who was drawing some hype, from specific outlets before the combine, and everything I heard around him was, well, the one thing he needs to prove is that he has speed, because he's got great ball skills, he's got physicality, but is the speed there? We don't know. And he answered that question during the combine with his 72nd percentile 40-yard dash. Athletic profile, best player comp on PlayerProfiler is AJ Terrell, which is not the case for the cornerbacks that are currently favored above him. But this is the case with Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley, those pretty good cornerbacks that went very early in the draft recently. Joey Porter Jr., draft position under 19.5 is my favorite bet on the board. I'm going to put 1 unit on this, which I don't do for NFL draft props usually. I just have some fun and sprinkle the long shots, but this one seems like the correct side all the way. Raise the stock at the combine with that speed. And if you look at cornerbacks drafted recently before, in that top 20, which is what this bet is suggesting, before 19.5, 2 in 2022 with a few selected, in the 20s. Same deal in 2021. And then 2020, there were 4 cornerbacks drafted top 20. And now you see a class that is not as strong at quarterback, not as strong at the top at wide receiver. And if you look at the teams that draft in the top 19, you could make an argument for almost all of them that, outside of the top 5, obviously, that sort of 10 to 20 range. There are teams that you could argue either would want to draft that cornerback or, Joey Porter is obviously a huge upgrade over what they have. You can make an argument for Arizona, Indianapolis. Detroit has 2 picks in that area. Las Vegas, Atlanta, Chicago, Tennessee, Houston, New England, Green Bay,
Shit.
Washington, and my landing spot for him, Pittsburgh. All of them could pull the trigger all before 19.5. Under
Shocker.
19.5 at minus 136.
Pittsburgh, shocker. Pittsburgh, shocker with that one. Shervon, where are you at with the cornerback position? Are you riding Joey Porter or are you going elsewhere?
I'm going elsewhere. I like Christian Gonzalez of Oregon to be the number 1 corner drafted in this class. He's at plus 150 on FanDuel, plus 140 on BetMGM. It's a little interesting, though, that Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois is currently the favorite to go to the Detroit Lions at, I believe, minus 160 right now. So that's a little interesting, but I just think Gonzalez is a better prospect. He tested much better than Witherspoon at the combine. He's almost 2 full years younger than both Witherspoon and Joey Porter Jr. I just think he's a really good prospect. His best comparable on Player Profiler is Marshawn Lattimore, who has been a pretty damn good corner. So and on top of that, on Player Profiler's mock draft index, Christian Gonzalez has a higher ADP than Devin Witherspoon. And as someone who has helped contribute to that mock draft index, I can assure you I've seen plenty of mock drafts where Christian Gonzalez is going before Devin Witherspoon. So to get this at plus money, I think it's well worth the shot.
Yeah, we haven't fully seen the Witherspoon ADP crest the single digits where you have with Gonzalez. And there's 2 sides to look at, I think, for this. You mentioned Witherspoon being older. There is rumors that coaching staffs think he has more of an aggressive factor that they like at cornerback position. And then Gonzalez being on the softer side, but he is 2 years younger. He's bigger. He's longer. He's got the hierarchy of his family being Olympians in Colombia. And Joey Porter Jr., of course, has Joey Porter Sr. as his father. So it's a great cornerback class here at the top with these 3 guys. Also throw Deonte Banks in there as that conversation goes. Lance Zierlein thinks he's going to be drafted higher than currently assessed. I think this is just an interesting group. I like Christian Gonzalez as being the top guy. I think if I was drafting, I'd probably take him because I like to project guys. I like the guys that are lengthy, are athletic, and they have those traits. But I'm not drafting. So Christian Gonzalez, first cornerback drafted, plus 150 on FanDuel, plus 140 on BetMGM. That is where Shervon sits. And Ahaan sits under 19.5 for Joey Porter Jr. That's minus 136 on FanDuel. And first cornerback drafted is plus 2,500. So even if you like Gonzalez as the first one, getting plus 2,500 on Joey Porter Jr. is just a nice little sprinkle I'd like to take. And I think that's a smart one there, Ahaan. Now let's go to the guys that face and play against these cornerbacks. Let's talk about wide receiver. There's a couple guys here, right, that are considered first round locks. There's a couple guys that are kind of on the fringe. I don't know where I want to start here because I think you guys are on two different sides of this angle. Let's start out with this one right here. 4.5 over under wide receivers drafted in the first round. Shervon, where are you sitting with this number? Because there's 3 guys in my mind that are locks.
3 guys that are locks. I think we can agree that Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers are locks. That's what I think, at least, and I think Cody would agree with that. As well as the majority of the draft industry. So then the over-under at wide receiver sits at 4.5 currently, which is, if I can look at my notes here, plus 370. And in the last 3 years, we've had 6, in 2022, 6 receivers went in the first round. 2021, we had 5 receivers in the first round. And then in 2020, we had 6 go in the first round. So I personally think that the over is going to hit again with Quentin Johnston, who I know his stock is slipping, but I think he'll still end up getting in that first round. And I think a team, especially like the Chargers or the Bills, could get enamored with Jalen Hyatt's speed. and to help with their offense. And I think that gets us to our over at 5. So I like 4.5 at plus 370.
Okay, so Quentin Johnston's the one guy that we didn't mention right away as the lock with Jackson, Jordan, and Zay. That is currently has ADP ahead of 30. Quentin's is 24.2 on the Player Profiler mock draft index. Ahaan, you may be looking at this from a different angle. Where do you see Quentin at right now as far as where's he going? His current ADP, his number is 26.5 on FanDuel at plus 132. Are you under this?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page as Shervon here about Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jordan Addison. But Quentin Johnston, the 26.5 number just seems a little disrespectful for someone who ranked number 7 in the class in athleticism score on Player Profiler, someone with an elite catch radius, elite burst score. He's just basically, that pure athlete, big body that we see a lot of teams with good quarterbacks want on their team, such as an AJ Brown type. So I'm not saying he's AJ Brown. I'm saying that, the body style, you see a lot of teams often overpay for someone just with a frame and, not much else in other departments. And Quentin Johnston is not just a pure athlete. He's got other skills as well. And you look at the teams that are sitting right now under 26.5, and it's the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Minnesota Vikings, the Baltimore Ravens, Los Angeles Chargers, and then at 20, the Seattle Seahawks. You could argue most of those teams would want a big body wide receiver. Maybe not the Seahawks, maybe not the Jags. They seem pretty set in their pass catching corps, but how about the Baltimore Ravens actually paying attention to their receiving core, or the Chargers trying to replace washed-ish Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, give Justin Herbert more help? Under 26.5, the value here is great because it's plus 132.
I like that. We're going to talk a little bit more about wide receivers when we come back right from this ad from the Podfather.
Oh, hey, it's Mr. Breakout Finder coming at you. The Breakout Finder features 3 key tools: a database of metrics that include speed score, college dominator, breakout age, but also Breakout Finder only stats like dynamic score, level of competition, teammate score. All of these things are part of the overall Breakout Finder algorithm that pinpoints the probability that a player will break out. Everyone's talking about my model does this and my model does that. Well, we give you the data points that go into the model. We have a feature that lets you compare players, and then we give you the precise probability of every wide receiver, every running back, sorted and filterable by class year. So when I'm talking to my friends and I need to show them why I'm so bullish on player X, I pull out the Breakout Finder and bam, there he is. So go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's $5 to get the Breakout Finder, and then a couple extra bucks to get some of these additional enhanced stats. Go download it and thank me later.
The Breakout Finder. Now, I want to talk about somebody that is rated very highly on the Breakout Finder, and that is Zay Flowers. Now, I see, Ahaan, you may like Zay Flowers. Do you want to indulge on some Zay and explain to me why you like this prop here over at FanDuel?
I've never seen a smoother 1 minute of transitioning from anybody in my life. I mean, we talk about Quentin Johnston. If you want to see where we rank Quentin Johnston in the Breakout Finder, go download it. You will be fascinated by where we rank Quentin Johnston, no matter what side you're on. Anyway,
I think you meant you said drank there. You said we drank Quentin Johnston because you know what? He's going to make a lot of people drink, I think.
I mean, it is the juice after all, right? Anyway,
we're drinking that simple green syrup. That's what we're drinking.
Zay Flowers. So, I've been on the Writers Roundtable. I've been on this show, and at some point, I have to drop a little bit of self-pity for myself for being a Patriots fan. Zay Flowers obviously goes to Boston College. There are rumors that the Patriots have not ruled out drafting one of the better wide receivers of the class in Zay Flowers. Spoiler alert, the Breakout Finder does not think Zay Flowers is garbage. If you want to see where we rank him, go download it. Zay Flowers, to be the first wide receiver drafted over Jackson Smith and Jigba, is good value at the 17% implied price that we're getting, plus 500 on FanDuel. And if you want a specific landing spot, it is noteworthy that the Patriots have not yet traded out of that number 14 spot, and wide receiver is one of the favorites for the Patriots to go with that first round selection. But that's just me trying to give myself false hope. Anyway, the value is with him being the first one off the board, especially in a class where these wide receivers, there's obviously no clear number one, and maybe some NFL players will tell you otherwise, that JSN is obviously the guy. But given the limitations surrounding all of these guys in some way, there's no clear do-it-all receiver guaranteed lock to be a superstar in the NFL, which some draft classes do have, like Justin Jefferson. This one does not. And Zay Flowers profiles very well under a bunch of our metrics. So plus 500 seems like a pretty good price.
I see a 7-part series here on Player Profiler called Who Got Next? And our boy Shervon Fakimi is writing this. You can Google Shervon Fakimi and Who Got Next, and they'll all pop up right there. Or you can just go to playerprofiler.com, go to the news and articles, and look in the NFL draft section. He did one on Zay Flowers. He did one on Jordan Addison. He did one on Jalen Hyatt, and amongst others. Go check it out. So that's your Zay Flowers plug here. So you got Zay Flowers as the first receiver drafted. Jackson feels like a lock. You like Quentin under 26.5. I'm assuming you got Addison in there somewhere. And do you think the Chiefs are going to go receiver?
I have been debating what the Chiefs are going to do for a long time, and given the price that we are being dropped on FanDuel, I say thank you very much. The chance that the Chiefs go wide receiver in the first round is more than 33%. We're getting plus 200 on the Chiefs drafting any wide receiver, not to mention they could reach on someone they like specifically for the Andy Reid offense. And over the last few weeks, I've thrown the idea of Rashee Rice, jumping up into the third round. And a lot of people, I mean, you could consider that a hot take given where he's being mocked right now. But the fact that you don't even need a specific wide receiver, like a Quentin Johnston to go specifically to the Chiefs, you could get someone that replaces Juju in some way. Because let's be honest, if Patrick Mahomes is feeling happy about his wide receiver situation right now, he's a brave man. Because it's just not good right now outside of Travis Kelce. Something happens to Travis Kelce for one game, I have no idea who's getting separation on that team except maybe Justin Watson like twice a game. So if I'm the Chiefs, I actually think I want to draft a wide receiver. And if I'm Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, 33% seems like a good price.
I like that. I also see Shervon has the same feeling for a different AFC team. And the one thing I do like about these picks is that it's first player drafted wide receiver. It's not first round pick. It's, these guys are at the back end of the second round, and they could very easily move into round 2. Buffalo's had a lot of conversations about moving back. I could see the world where the Chiefs do as well. I like that. I think that gives you a little more flexibility too, because if they do move back 10 spots, that opens the Pandora's box for Josh Downs, Jonathan Mingo, Tillman, Rashee Rice. It's just like it's never ending at the wide receiver position, and it doesn't cost you as much draft capital. Let's finish out these wide receiver conversations for the time being with that other AFC team. Shervon, you got another one?
This is pretty much the exact same bet as Ahaan, but a different team. The Buffalo Bills, first position drafted wide receiver, plus 380 on FanDuel. I think this is just like a smash, personally. We know Gabe Davis is not it. He ranked 68th among receivers in target rate with an 18.3%, 49th in yards per route run. I am a fan of Khalil Shakir, but he was barely used as a rookie, as seems to be the norm with Buffalo players drafted not in the first or not in day 1 or day 2. Stephon Diggs is going to be 30 years old in November of 2023. Not that he's washed or anything, but it's always nice to start planning for the future once Diggs does start to slow down, if that ever happens. And you look around in the AFC East, the Dolphins just traded for Jalen Ramsey to go with Xavier Howard. The Jets have Sauce Gardner. The Patriots are always frisky in the secondary. Bill Belichick was a defensive backs coach after all before working his way up. So, and the Jets are likely sooner or later, this Aaron Rodgers fiasco is finally going to be over. So there's more offensive firepower in the division as well. And then lastly, you look at where these guys are going on the player profile mock draft index. Jordan Addison, 23.7, Quentin Johnston, 24.2, Zay Flowers, 26.8, Jalen High at 33. All are within 680p spots of Buffalo's pick at 27. And as Cody mentioned earlier, if a team wanted to like trade up to go draft Hendon Hooker and get his 5th-year option, a team like the Raiders or the Titans, then they could just fall back into the second round, get more draft capital, and go land a guy like Josh Downs, who is one of my favorite receivers in this draft. Could go get a Josh Downs, could get one of Cody's guys, Jonathan Mingo, could go get Cedric Tillman. So they need help at receiver. We saw it in the playoffs, and to get plus 380, I think is a smash hit.
I was just on the WGR 550 Buffalo radio show with Mike Shope from the Deep End talking about the Buffalo Bills and kind of what they are doing. I mocked Cody Mock there from North Dakota State. He's kind of a 5'2" offensive lineman, and I kind of got a little scoff from them. I also talked about edge, got a little scoff from them, and they brought up wide receiver. And so that's when you brought up that, I was like, ooh, I really like that. And you're getting pretty good juice on that plus 380. It's a pretty sneaky bet. I kind of like that. Let's move to tight end. Stay in the receiving game. Move to tight end. Tight ends in the first round. Over under is 2.5. Ahaan, I don't love tight ends. Do you?
What do you mean by that? Anyway,
Pause.
I like the tight end. There. Thank you. I like the tight ends in this class of the NFL draft. There are a lot of teams that have, we were talking about this right before the show about how much do visits mean, right? Like how much does it mean for teams to visit either, during the combine or after? If it's a Will Levis meeting with the Patriots, I maybe that doesn't mean anything, but there has been a team that has met with a lot of tight ends, and there have been a lot of tight ends that people are throwing out as like, this is the guy, this is going to be the best tight end of the class. And I've been hearing, speaking of the Bills, a lot of Bills reporters start to profile tight ends, thinking that the front office might draft a tight end at some point in this draft. What you think of Dawson Knox, I don't know. Dawson Knox was not bad efficiency-wise last year. He's a good athlete, former third rounder. But go figure, the Bills drafting a tight end seems like it could be a real thing. So there are tight ends that are probably going to go late first round. For 1/10 of a unit, Bills to draft a tight end as their first player, plus 2,000. And again, like Cody said earlier, it doesn't have to be, at that spot. They could trade down and still get a tight end as their first drafted player, a really good one at plus 2,000. Given the report seems good, I might just throw 1/10 of a unit on that. But the main tight end bet here is over 2.5 tight ends drafted in the first round at plus money seems really good. And again, you look at the sort of teams that currently have picks around the 21 to 29 range with the needs at tight end. I would argue the Chargers have a need at tight end. The Cowboys just lost Dalton Schultz. The Bengals will do anything to improve their offense, right? They just signed Orlando Brown, stole him from the Chiefs. So they'll help Joe Burrow any way they can. And Meyer and Dalton Kincaid, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but Dalton Kincaid, they seem to be locks to go in the first round. Washington, Musgrave, Sam Laporta all have chances to sneak in the first round if you sort of look at steam around them, and they all have athletic profiles that look like they could be actual immediately good, useful NFL wide receivers. And if you look at a lot of these teams, they are looking for immediate talent that could help them contend for a Super Bowl. So I like at the plus money, half a unit on over 2.5 tight ends in the first round.
All right, we're at the 35-minute mark. Let's go to the running back position, and then let's get out of here. Shervon, I see you got a running back on here, and not only one, but you're considering 2. Are we making the run game great again in 2023, or what's the deal?
I'm a proponent of running back lives matter. Personally, they deserve to be treated with fairness and respect. And I'm seeing on FanDuel plus 350 for over 1.5 running backs to get drafted in the first round. I think that's a good bet because we know one of them is going in the first round for sure, and that's Bijan Robinson, who is, I mean, you just have to watch him play one time and you get it. You just get it. So he's going to go in the first round. And then later on in the first round, there are enough teams, I think, that could afford to take Jahmyr Gibbs with their first round pick. The Chargers, if this Austin Eckler situation goes by the wayside, certainly seems like he's going to be there for at least just one more year. The Bills could use a running back. James Cook, we'll see with him in his second season, but he had some flashes, not super consistent. The Bengals, to me, are the overwhelming target for Jahmyr Gibbs with their Joe Mixon situation. If you've been following Jack Kavanaugh over at Player Profiler today, he's been beating the drum all offseason long that a Joe Mixon cut or release could be inevitable any day now. So they're a team that could use a running back and have already addressed offensive line with signing Orlando Brown, as Ahaan noted earlier. The Eagles could use another running back, although I think the Rashad Penny signing was awesome for them, and I love Kenny Gainwell. And the Chiefs, maybe they can right their wrong from Clyde Edwards-Helaire and draft an actual good running back in the first round. So there's enough teams that I think could make sense to draft Jahmyr Gibbs that plus 350 I think is worth a look.
I love that plus 700 with Cincinnati. You bring up Joe Mixon obviously departing. It looks every day goes by like that's going to be kind of the angle that goes. And Gibbs, I think this is what I've been talking about in the last week and a half. I don't know why it came to me one day, but it seems like at the tight end position, right? They tried with Uzama, they tried with Hayden Hurst, and they've moved on. They said, all right, cool. We're just going to bring in a bunch of move tight ends, Ossie, Irv Smith, and bring back Drew Sample to be a run blocker. Why not shift the angle of the offense, right? You know what you have at the receiver position. You know what you got at quarterback. You know what your offensive line can and can't do. Fuck tight end. Bring in Jahmyr Gibbs and put him in the Clyde Edwards-Helaire role. Clyde Edwards-Helaire with Joe Burrow at LSU. It creates an entirely different dynamic for the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's not the run game. It's not. Gibbs would unlock the passing game completely because you'd have to not only worry about Chase down there and T. Higgins here and Boyd everywhere, and who gives a shit who's playing tight end, but you have to worry about Gibbs being the most dynamic running back in the NFL out of the backfield other than Christian McCaffrey. And even if you think Gibbs is overrated, he's still really good out of the backfield. He's a really good pass blocker, which we know Burrow needs some pickup next to him. I love the Gibbs plus 700. Put the salt on there, sprinkle it, salt and pepper.
Little sprinkle. You can't go wrong with a little sprinkle.
Little sprinkle. Let's get down to the business. I want a couple of hot bets. I want a hot bet from each of you. We'll get the hell out of here. It's been 38 minutes, but I'm going to give you mine first. These are the 2 bets I'm making. That's it. Just 2. That's all I got the whole process. The number 2 overall pick. I got 2 bets for the same bet. Number 2, if it's traded, I think it goes to the Raiders or the Titans. I think it's for Anthony Richardson. I think they come up for Anthony Richardson. That's plus 2,000 on FanDuel. And I think if Houston stays, it's not for Tyree Wilson. It's for Jalen Carter, plus 2,000. Both are plus 2,000. I'll sprinkle on both. If I lose, cool. I'm not going to be getting rid of $1 million. You know, it is what it is. I also got to shout out Trevor Tipton. He's a new betting analyst for Player Profile. He's writing up some articles. He just put one out, and he had Jalen Carter plus 2,000, and that line has not moved. I love that one. And Anthony Richardson, both plus 2,000. Give me that. Let's start with you, Shervon. What is your hot take for the draft? What's the big bet?
My hot take, plus 700 for Jordan Addison to be the first receiver drafted. I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he is the actual best receiver in this class, but I do think Jordan Addison is the most complete receiver in this class after dominating in the slot primarily at Pittsburgh in 2021 and putting up nearly identical numbers in a whole new offense at USC in 2022. Granted, yes, it helps having Caleb Williams, but Jordan Addison also in 2021 led college receivers in yards against press coverage with over 1,000. And considering that the rookie receivers that we just saw, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Traylon Burks, Drake London, Jameson Williams, all of them played in that season, and Jordan Addison still had more yards in press coverage against any of them, along with everyone in this year's class as well. I think he's going to be a really good receiver. I think he's being slept on. I think JSN is the best receiver in this class, but at plus 700, I'm taking my shot on Addison being the number one drafted in this class.
We saw Devonta Smith be undersized, be a great route runner, and get drafted top 10. I'm not saying Addison is Devonta Smith, but Jordan Addison's pretty damn good. He won the Blitnikoff 2 years ago, transferred across the country, played with the Heisman winner, and continued to show output, even though people are like, "Wow, he sucked this year." No. Read between the lines there, buddy. Jordan Addison's a really good wide receiver, so I like that one. Shervon. You can find Shervon on Twitter at Shervon Fakimi. You can find Ahaan on Twitter at Ahaan Runkta. Make sure you click like, click subscribe. Ahaan, it's your turn. Take us home. What's the hot bet? What's the nuke bomb? What's the sprinkle of the week for the NFL draft? Take us home.
And this is what I do, right? I give out minus 136s, and I put a unit on that. But I can't live with myself if I don't take a plus 4,000 to close out the episode.
Wow.
By the way, I'll be both plus 700s that you gave out. Like I've liked both of those for a while, and now we get the stamps of approval from Shervon and Cody with Jahmyr Gibbs and Jordan Addison. So I'm taking that right after we're done recording. But the plus 4,000 that I put in this morning, a certain someone went on the Dan Patrick show this morning and said, I had 2 visits. And Dan Patrick says, oh, yeah, what 2 were they? And he responded, the Eagles and the Bucks. Bijan Robinson to the Eagles at plus 1,000, pass. Right? I think they're happy with Rashad Penny. Bijan Robinson to the Bucks at 1-40. Is it good for the Bucks? No. Can it happen at more than 1-41? Yes. If you don't throw $10 or whatever 1/10 of a unit for you is, I know we got some high rollers out there that'll throw 100 on that. What are you doing? 1-40? Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good week, everybody. NFL draft, 7 days out.
Let's
Nuke
go.
bomb.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out PlayerProfiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.